Welcome and thank you for joining us on yet another time out on the Constitution, where of course we talk about all the issues, but that has to do with socio-economic and political concern. And for today, we always want to talk about that which we talk about from the perspective of the economic segment or economic narrative of the Nigerian state, which is what we'll be looking at today. Precisely, we'll be talking about employment and of course vis-a-vis unemployment, the challenges and so many other elements that has to connect with this issue of employment and unemployment, which focus again on youth and adult unemployment and looking at the constitutional provisions, so to speak, that also governs and guide the direction of the economic activity of government policies and programs in line with economic employment and unemployment in the country today. But primarily, as the focus of the International Center for Tax Research and Development is for us to look at how we can address some of this issue by constitutional provisions and how the government is helping to address and look at policies within the constitutional provisions to address this subject matter of interest and of concern. That is what we'll be looking at today again, with yet the guest who, of course, a lot of people did ask so much after when he came on the program, and you'll get to meet him shortly. We want to thank you for now for joining us on the Constitution. We'll take a break and we'll be right back in a second.
For a country as great and renowned as Nigeria, flourishing in the abundance of God's given natural resources, and a blessed people known globally to be hardworking, selfless, dedicated, and resourceful in all human endeavors, should employment engagement be a curse or a blessing to Nigerians? Should Nigerians for any reason have cause to worry about unemployment? By all sense of reasoning, these in the view of global watch and reckoning should not be. Where then are we getting it wrong in Nigeria? Why is the issue of economic engagement vis-a-vis unemployment concern dominates the center stage of public discourse in Nigeria? Are there constitutional provisions in the Constitution in addressing and meeting with these challenges? It calls for worry and concern indeed when one realizes that in accordance with the provision of the Constitution under Section 17, subsection 3, citizens shall have the opportunity to secure adequate means of livelihood, as well as adequate opportunity to secure suitable employment on the need for Nigerians to have access to employment engagement. Besides, Section 16, subsection 2, does state that the state shall direct its policy towards ensuring the promotion of a planned and balanced economic development in Nigeria. In furtherance of the constitutional provisions, it states that the economic system shall not be operated in such a manner as to permit the concentration of wealth or means of production and exchange in the hands of few individuals or a group. More importantly, too, that the material resources of the nation are to be harnessed and distributed as best as possible to serve the common good of Nigerians. The question then is, how well are those elected into power and those elected to serve are conscious of the provisions of the Constitution? According to the view of public opinion, it is of the belief that it is only when we practice the Constitution that we can identify areas of urgent review and why policies of government and what policies of government can be put in place to honor the place of the Constitution in the lives of Nigerians. This will be against the present status quo, where the government thinks that they are merely doing a favor to the citizens, instead of them saying that they are merely doing their duties under the Constitution. Should this be so? In the safety guidelines ensured in the Constitution, it states that the citizenry should be well cared for, noting that the essence of government is not only for the welfare and security of the people, but equally on the security of life, food, property, and employment towards ensuring an egalitarian society. Our discuss today on the Constitution with Dr. Femi Egbeshola focuses on the Constitution perspective on economic activity and employment.
Welcome back and thank you for joining us. It's still the Constitution wherever you are watching us on DSTV channel 256, Star Times channel 113, Go TV channel 90, and on Play TV channel 850. That's where you connect with us to talk about and join us in this issue of discourse on the Constitution for today. My guest again is Dr. Femi Egbeshola. He's the president of the Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria, where you think small and of course you grow big. And he's one man we appreciate at a time like this, that we still have competent, meaningful Nigerians who has the wherewithal to give direction of purpose to issues of discourse as this. And we say big welcome to Dr. Femi Egbeshola again. Thank you very much. So very much for this honor to have you again today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, today, away from what we talked about last time, we want to take a look at employment and unemployment. They want to go together, vis-a-vis how it concerns government policies, programs, and of course action plan, and of course taking a look at it from the constitutional perspective of provisions and narrative. But let us begin, before we go into the constitutional area, let us begin by understanding this issue of employment vis-a-vis unemployment. If we must look at a background analysis, what would you say?
Well, employment, or the other way around, unemployment, is inability to get a job over a reasonable period of time. And it's one word that is known to everybody, because it's a menace that is affecting virtually everybody, especially in developing countries like ours, whereby you get what you feel you need in terms of certificates, but the jobs are not there. You go looking for a job for months or years, and you can't get the job. That's a big challenge, and it's something that is worthy to discuss as we're having it today, believing that what we're going to say here will help the government and people in policy making to be able to do one or two things to improve employment and unemployment in our society.
So given that, sir, if we may not ask, rather, if we may now look at it, the need for employment engagement is very essential, whether we like it or not, against the background of what you've just said, the analysis you gave. So, employment engagement, how do you see this? How does it connect?
In any country, what you need is to make sure that you live a good life. One way you can get a good life is earning something at the end of a week, a month, or whatever the case may be, to be able to pursue what you need to get a good life. It is a government's directive that everybody must be gainfully engaged. And it's not everybody that will be an entrepreneur. Some of us must work. Even if you want to be an entrepreneur, you must work for some time and get some savings before you can start a business. So it's important that employment is given a critical attention. Unfortunately,
by the government.
Yes, by the government, and also by individuals, corporate organizations and individuals.
That's a private
Many
sector.
believe that it is a duty of government to provide
primarily
employment, but that's not the case. It is we ourselves that should provide employment for ourselves. What government really need to do is to provide the enabling environment so that businesses can thrive and we can get ourselves engaged, we can get ourselves employed. But if the government has not provided the needed infrastructure, the needed policies, it will be difficult for individuals to do business and thrive and employ others, or increase the number of employments they have at the moment. And here now, in our country, government has a lot to do in improving our welfare. It is their duty to make sure that everybody is gainfully employed, whether they're employing directly or indirectly, whether they're providing the policies, whether they're making the environment enabling. It is their primary responsibility. And that's why when you see politicians going out to campaign, they begin to talk about creating employment, and they see it as doing us a favor. It's not a favor. It is their right to provide it, to create that welfare, to create security. Security of employment is part of the security that they are expected to create, so that everybody can gainfully be employed, and we will all be happy that we are having a good government in place. It's good that we are in an electioneering period. This is a time for us to also put in place leaders that we feel can do it right. And many in the past have come and talk sweet. At the end of the day, they have not done anything. This is the time for us to be able to put in place those we feel can do it right. One of the way of doing it right is creating that environment that can provide jobs. A lot of people, students, youths are being shone out year in, year out from
schools,
yes, from the universities.
That's right.
And there's no job for them. In Nigeria now, the unemployment rate is about 65%, and that is alarming. Unfortunately, it is getting worsened. Instead of improving, we are seeing the other side of it. It's a great cause for concern, because when youths are unemployed, a lot of negative things happen. And this also makes government to spend so much on security, trying to curb what ordinarily should have been solved the other way around by creating employment.
I can see that you are well grounded from your expression of that which you've expressed in really giving us a grasp of the understanding of this. Now you talked about policies, so we need to look at that.
Okay.
If we have to look at government policies, government programs, alongside corporate organizations, keying into these policies to also expand the scope of employment that we are talking about, how do we address it? The policies today, how do you see it? Programs today, is it good enough? And how is the current, private corporate organization keen into this? Are they also doing well in this regard?
Well, you judge the efficiency of a policy by the result you get. If all the policies that have been formulated before now has gotten us to where we are now, where we have rising unemployment, it means those policies are not working. That means we need to go back to the drawing board to see what needs to be done better to improve our livelihood. And it's good to hear that even in this new present administration now, they are talking about improving on ease of doing business and kickstarting it as soon as possible. If the policy of ease of doing business can really be factored in and implemented to the letter, it will really improve the environment. Investors will be able to come into the country, and when they come into the country, it means that more people will be engaged. If policies are right and importation are banned or taxes are increased on imported goods, it will also encourage people to go into business here. And when more people go into business here, it increases employment. We have more people to be employed, and it will reduce to a large extent unemployment. We also need to look at policies that are detrimental to employment. For example, in the universities now, you see university lecturers clamoring that instead of retiring at age 65, they want to retire at age 70. If they have 5 additional years added to their years of service, it means that the youth will wait for more 5 years before these ones will leave the space and they come in. That's not going to be good enough. We have to be thinking about these are youth, how we can gainfully engage them. Yes. So we also need to look at policies that has to do with agriculture. If agriculture is given a boost, especially mechanized farming, more of our youth will not be migrating to the urban area. They will stay where they are and they will be gainfully employed. Government also need to look at policies that has to do with spreading evenly the infrastructures we have in place, not concentrating it only in the urban area. If my village is good, I have a good road, I have water, I have every other thing in place, I would like to stay in my village and work.
Not come to Lagos.
Not come to Lagos or Abuja or Port Harcourt or as the case may be. Yeah, we need to see how infrastructures can be improved in our towns and villages so that people can be gainfully employed and engaged in business there. We don't need to look for white-collar job all the time. Agriculture is one key area that can solve a lot of unemployment issues if only government decides to meaningfully direct their energy there and see to it that it is working.
I am really very, very carried away with what you just said on all of these narrative from the government perspective. But how about the corporate organizations? How don't they fit in all of this arrangement alongside the point you've just raised?
Yes, granted, the corporate organizations are trying. Many of us today are looking up to them to get meaningful employment. They even more than often pay than government. And
that's the private sector.
Yes, and they respect the rights of the employees most often than not. They are trying. But unfortunately, they are limited because of the environment too. When they cannot grow as they should, they will not be able to employ more than they should. When there's recession in the country, ordinarily it means that their profit will also drop. And when their profit drops, of course, it will lead to unemployment. Technology, too, is not helping matters. In corporate organization, in factories particularly, jobs that 10, 20, 50 persons will do ordinarily before, you have machineries that can fit in and do it more efficiently and even better. Yes, that's not really helping. But what we need to look at is, aside from the corporate organization, how can we empower an average Nigerian to go into business? If everybody is empowered and we have the right infrastructure in place, we have the right policy in place, and the environment is also right, we have access to finance and every other logistics that you need to do business, everybody will be yearning to do business. Really, not everybody is interested in saying yes, sir, or 30 days make a pay. Yeah, but we can also get ourselves engaged if governments proactively decide to formulate policies that will endear entrepreneurship in our mind, such that even from my school days, I will be thinking of starting a small business and growing it, not thinking of, let me get my certificate so that I can quickly go to Unilever, go to PZ or other corporate blue chip companies to work.
Or the oil companies, the oil firms there to work.
Yes, and the right skill is not always there too. That is not helping us to get job in this corporate organization. Some of us want to enter higher institution, tertiary institution, because I just want to have a certificate. When I come out with my certificate, I discover that the course I have gone there to do is a disconnect from what the labor market wants. You understand?
That's right.
If I go and study marine engineering, how many marine companies are there to engage me? Are you getting the point?
Well.
Those who are even studying the right skill are not getting the right training and lecturing that they do, that they need rather, because most of our universities are full of theories and not practical. So if I go to the university and study auto mechanics and I cannot even identify a gear from an engine, how do I get engaged? How will the company, how the company employs me? So these are also contributing to unemployment. So you discover that some of these corporate organizations will prefer to maintain their old hands instead of employing new ones, because some of these new ones are not doing well, or prefer to even bring in expatriates from other countries to come and work here. So it is also government that needs to improve that. We have a ministry and agencies that is overseeing education down to the tertiary level. They need to monitor these universities, monitor these secondary schools, to ensure that this idea of entrepreneurship is being embedded in the minds of students and pupils, such that when they are graduating, they will be useful to themselves. They will be able to create more employment by having their own businesses, and that will go a long way to bring down unemployment. In countries today that has less unemployment rates, like advanced countries, like the Asian countries, what they do is that they pay more attention to small business owners rather than paying attention to government creating the job. Government can never create enough jobs. It's not even the duty of government to actually create jobs. Yes, it is we ourselves that should be encouraged.
The government should provide the enabling environment.
To create jobs. And that's why they have a reduction in the number of unemployment there. If today too we have a lot of entrepreneurs springing up, unemployment will become highly reduced, if not a thing of the past.
We must but also take a look at challenges hindering the efficiency and effectiveness of service delivery in employment engagement. Here we're looking at motivation, we're looking at a good salary, we're looking at those elemental factors that help drive service delivery in unemployment engagement. What do you think we should really, how do we address this challenge in that area?
Well, a lot is in the hands of the labor leaders who are primarily in the responsibility of formulating labor laws and ensuring that these labor laws are adhered to. If labor laws are adhered to, staff welfare or employees' welfare will be well taken care of. But if these laws are watered down, we'll have what we have today. And that's why the companies are doing whatever they like to their employees. They pay them stipends because there's nobody that is going to enforce it, that this is the minimum amount you have to pay. If you look at labor leaders talking about salaries, they concentrate more on government. and not on private institutions.
But it must be on both sides.
Yes, if there's going to be an increase in salary payments, it should cut across. If the private sector cannot do as much as government, they should be able to also improve on what they were doing before. And when it comes to the way staffs are being treated, it's not too good. You see staff being disengaged without any pension, without any gratuity. You see staff being employed for a particular purpose, but being treated otherwise, giving him other or her other functions aside from what he or she has been employed for, and nobody has a voice to complain or where to really complain to. You have staff being arbitrarily disengaged without anything happening. You go to labor courts, you are there for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years getting no results. You that is no longer earning money, you now need to pay a lawyer to represent you. Where do you get that kind of fund from? Yeah, these are issues that is mitigating against the welfare of staffs or employees. And then you can also not also blame the companies, because when they place advert for 5 vacancies, you see about 2,000, 3,000 job seekers applying for that particular position. Right. And what that means is that if I want to give you very hard rules and you are not ready to cooperate, I have a lot of people lining up there, I'll just replace you. That's what it means. And that's why we are not getting the right result we need to get at this point in time.
And that is affecting service delivery
of
to
course,
the employment
of course.
engagement.
So if I am not getting what I want, I have toiled and labored so much to go to the university. I believe my minimum wage should be about 50,000. I get an employment of 15,000. I'm going to give out what is incommensurate with what I'm getting. And then, like you mentioned the other time, the motivation is not there. People are not motivated. The motivation is not there. If I am motivated well enough, I will be able to even deliver more than is expected of me. But what primarily motivates is my take home. Yeah, a lot of things rest on money. My take home is one of it. If I'm underpaid, I'm not paid as at when due, I may not be able to give you what you want as my employer. If I'm not also treated right, if I'm treated as a slave, I may not be able to give to you what you feel you should get from me. Yeah, all these things are important. And if other social factors are also connected to it, I may not be able to deliver well enough. One of those social factors is I am living maybe at Abulegba end. My office is at Lekki. I have spent about 3-4 hours on the road before getting to work. I am already morally down. My energy level is already down.
Lots of manpower.
Yes, I'm not going to be able to give you my optimum service and performance at the end of the day.
So these are issues that that hinders effective and efficiency in employment engagement. Now let's look at the place of the need for a government to review policies and programs on employment engagement. Do you think there is a need, given all of these issues that you have just highlighted now? Is there a need for a review of government policies and programs as we speak to today, looking at where we're coming from to where we are now?
There is an urgent need for a review of our policies as regards employment matters. In fact, a state of emergency should be declared when it comes to the issue of
state of emergency should be declared.
Yes, when it comes to issue of unemployment. Because unemployment leads to many of the vices we have today. We hear of killings here and there because of political activities. Why are people hell-bent in becoming political thugs? Because there's no job, because they have nowhere to go. So a lot of vices, a lot of crime, a lot of other illegal things are happening because our youths are not well engaged. And if this is happening, it means that our policy is wrong, or there are areas that needs to be corrected in our policies. And that's why there is need for us, or for government this time, to need to sit down again, go back to the drawing board and look at where they need to dot the I's and cross the T's to put things in place so that unemployment issues can be tackled headlong. Like I said, every year we have about 200,000 graduates being shown out to the labor market, and about 5,000 of them are employed yearly. What happens to the 195 or so thousand left? Yes, this is a major concern. If government wants to have a secure country, they need to provide jobs. or create the enabling environment so that businessmen and women entrepreneurs can thrive and provide jobs. No matter how good intentioned a government is, if these unemployment issues are what we are having as the bane today, a lot of things will not go right. Yeah.
I quite agree with you, Dr. Igbeshola, but then let's look at how well the private sector can make a difference here. What role do you think the private sector should play when we talk about the necessity for employment engagement programs and action plans? Can they in any way play a role in this narrative of government reviews of policies, programs, and action plans?
Yeah. Private sector cannot give what they do not have. If I am expanding as a private sector, that is when I would think of engaging more staff. So the first thing we should look at is what can we do so that the private sector can grow. It is when they grow that they can actually employ more. In the country we are having today, many of our factories, many of our multinational companies are folding up. If they are folding up, it will never be their choice. Yeah, it is because there's a problem somewhere, somehow. And when they fold up, it also means that they will release their employees to the job market again. We need to look at how to actually grow this sector first. Let me give you an instance. If we don't import petrol today, you can imagine a number of jobs that will be created, assuming we are refining our petrol here. If we stop the importation of rice today, you can imagine the number of farmers that will be engaged. Now, we have some farmers in the market trying to plant rice. The rice will not sell because we have the imported ones, and we have a taste for imported products, so the local ones will not sell. But if I am not able to get the imported ones, there's a policy in place that I can never get imported ones. I have to fall back to the local ones. See the number of metric tons of rice we consume on a daily basis. You can imagine the number of people who will be employed to produce this rice. A farmer was discussing with me the other time, and he told me that after going through the rigor of planting and harvesting and packaging his rice, he could not sell it. Not until after he now rebag it and put made in Thailand there. And people came to his store, and before you could know it, the store is empty because it's written made in Thailand. That's a policy issue. So it is government really that can assist the corporate organization to be able to employ more. If the policies is not right, if the government is not doing the right thing to grow that sector, it will be difficult for any corporate organization to want to employ. If I have a job that 10 men can do as an MD of a company, I would definitely want to engage them if I'm making enough profits. But if I'm not making the profit to sustain them, it will be difficult for me to do so. And that's why in most corporate organizations today, you see one man doing 2, 3, or 4 jobs that is meant for 4 people, because they have to find ways of maximizing their profits.
Costs.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's the thing.
Well, the menace and challenge today of youth and adult unemployment is what we are faced with today. Is a reality that is down on us. What do we do? Is there a way out?
Come again, please.
I said the menace of youth and adult unemployment today is what we are faced with. It's a reality that has dawned on us.
Yes.
Is there a way out?
Yes. That's the beauty of this program we're having today, to remind government again that it's really a menace when jobs are not created. It's really a big menace. And if jobs are not created, a lot of the vices we have around will not be solved. You can imagine if all this restlessness we're having in the country, if those people engaged in it are gainfully employed, most of them will not do it. They will not do it. Government needs to pay more than usual attention on creating jobs, and at the same time creating an enabling environment for businesses to grow. We have other factors too that government needs to look at so that more people can be employed. One of such is the issue of corruption in government. Corruption will go as far as having ghost workers in place. When people,
and that is very predominant.
Yes. When people are there to get jobs, they can't get jobs. But some people are collecting salary for people who are not there. in the name of ghost workers. That's the corruption. You understand? Government needs to also, as much as possible, prune down corruption. It will go and affect positively virtually every sector of the economy. And we also need to look at how we can help ourselves. I have a certificate, I've gone for a job, I have not seen a job to engage in. I must also look at how I can help myself. It's not compulsory that somebody must employ me at all costs. Yeah, if I can also be creative enough, if I also be innovative enough, I can start something at the back of my house. Most of our youth today will complain that there's no money, and because there's no money, they cannot start anything. But I've seen a lot of people who have started 1 or 2 businesses, even with what we call stipends. I can remember the experience of one young boy who graduated and could not get a job for 6 years. And after enough encouragement and mentoring, he was able to start poultry farming at the back of his father's house with just about 20 chicks. And that was a savings he was able to make from the pocket money that he was given over time. And today he's having a big poultry farm. There's another woman like that, an elderly woman that was able to start a chin-chin business in one of his rooms, and over time he has been able to grow that business. Today he's employing about 25 staffs. So we should also think of how we can help ourselves as individuals.
Yes. Not necessarily waiting for government.
Yes, not necessarily waiting
but
for
it
government.
doesn't come easy the way you're saying it now, except where one has that encouragement, the mentoring, the exposure, and of course the support. The young man you're talking about, were there no support for him, he wouldn't have been where he is today. I don't know. I'm just
yes, it's not easy, but the mindset of most of our youth also is that because it is not easy, or it is perceived not to be easy, they don't even want to give it a try. They don't even want to give it a try. The first thing is to give it a try. Okay, I want to do a poultry farming, for example, like that young man, and I need like 20,000 to start. I don't have a 20,000 naira with me. Do I even make that push to look for 20,000 in the first place? And you see them using big phones that is more than 20,000 naira. You see them doing other things, engaging in social activities that is much more than 20,000 naira. And they say, come back and say, it's not easy. So we need to change our mindset when it comes to that. It can always be easy if we want it to be easy. Right, the environment is not too good, but then we can help ourselves in one small way or the other.
We know that there are those in government. I know that at one time it's still in place where after 10 years you can voluntarily resign to want to start a business on your own. But that fear of uncertainty, it's always there. That okay, I'm in employment. I have acquired certain skills now. I've been able to know this. Having gone through some training, I choose to want to retire to say, let me just go on my own to start something. But you find out that if you want to take a step further, that unknown, that fear of the unknown is what keeps you back. How can that be addressed?
Yes, it's natural to have fear for the unknown. And that's why we see so many civil servants today, especially civil servants and those other gainfully employed in corporate organizations, finding it difficult to resign and go and start their own business. But some of us do preach against that. You cannot be there forever.
That's
yes. You have a limited years that you can be useful to yourself. If you want to retire at the age of 50, 55, 60, you are no longer really useful to yourself again at that time. You also need to use your energy to serve yourself. You also be ready to contribute to the society by also employing others. So what do you do?
What do we do?
Why it may be against labor law to be doing business while you are employed. But in the situation we find ourselves in Nigeria, we encourage civil servants or employees to start a small business while they are still working. The fear is that if I start this small business, if I'm not there 24 hours, those people I put in charge may eat the business up. Yes, let them eat the business up. But by the time they hit the business up, you have learned some number of lessons that no book can teach you. And now that you are still employed, you are still getting some source of income that you can use to start that business again with the lesson learned and do it better. By the time you now grow it for 1, 2, 3 years, you will have that courage to now leave your employment and go and face your own business. That's the key to it. That's the key to it. I don't also want to encourage anybody who don't have any business experience to just resign and go and start.
When you don't have an experience.
No. While you are at work, start something. put your wife, put your kid, put your relative, put somebody in charge. Have that belief that it may not work. But you will learn those lessons no book can teach you.
Process.
Yes, and the process.
We must go now. I have signals from my producer saying a big thank you to him out there too. But before we go, let's just wrap this up, sir, by looking at constitutional provisions as provided for on the part of government, what government must do constitutionally as stated in the provisions of the Constitution to enable employment generation, a key subject and support for the youth and, of course, people, adults as well.
Yes, constitutionally, it is a duty of government to provide security of employment, to provide good welfare, to make good living possible for the indigents, for the inhabitants of that country. Yeah, it's the duty of government. And if that is not working, it means constitutionally the government is not fulfilling his or her role in doing that. So governments must always ensure that the livelihood of its citizens are improved. And if not above average, must be at the average.
That's right. If not above average,
yes,
it must be
at the average.
At the average.
Yeah, the government today is not fulfilling that constitutional responsibility because, like we mentioned the other time, about 65% of our youth are unemployed. That is alarming. And that means that government needs to pay more than the usual attention in this constitutional rights of our citizens. It is the duty of government to make sure that I live well. And that's why in advanced countries...
As long as you are citizens of that country.
That's why in advanced countries you see that those who are not even employed are paid certain stipend to make sure that they have the necessary basic necessities of life until they have something to do. So constitutionally, we are not satisfied. We, the citizens, are not satisfied with the government. So we need to continue to shout. And the government also need to see it as a duty to provide that enabling environment for business to thrive and also to create the number of jobs they ordinarily can create on their own.
And give the support
they don't necessary. Need to always go out there and begin to tell us that as one of their political gain is with that they will create employment for us. They are not doing us a favor.
It's a constitutional right.
Yes, it's our right to have it, and it is their duty to do it.
Thank you very much. Thank you so very much, Dr. Femi Egbeshola. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
You're most welcome.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity once again.
Well, this is where we call it there again today on the Constitution as put together by the International Center for Tax Research and Development. But then the Youth Wing segment will also come in a minute to wrap up the program for today. Well, thank you so very much for joining us.
No love is all we need. No love is all we need.
Because as a human being, it's important for you to know that a lot of people don't know what they want to do because of the system does not allow them to know what they want to do. When you give them an option, do you want this or do you want this? They are forced to make a choice. So you put them in a situation to know, what do I want to do? So people begin to make informed decisions, not just going to where the state
crowd or
exactly.
With the flow or
so you allow
like
them to make informed decisions. Do you want to start up something by yourself, or do you want to work with somebody who you see a direct future with? And then when individuals are allowed to make that decision, right, you see people are much more better. People are much more beneficial in what they. It's let's bring it down to a logical system. As opposed to when they do random balloting to where do you want to go to, right? They might post me to somewhere or they might put me somewhere I don't like. But when you ask me, where do I want to go to? What is your genuine reason for going to where you want to go to? And I know that. You can easily see that this is a bright mind. This is somebody that needs to be developed. It's somebody that can produce Nigeria into what we want to be.
Yeah.
And then when you give that person the necessary resources, that person will get it. So this and the National Youth Employment Scheme, entrepreneur scheme, what it will do for us is that we feel the government should provide certain manpower, certain utility that these startups will need.
No love is all we need.
It could be finances. It could be the necessary things they need to do. It could be the necessary documents. Easy access, because it is so hard for you to register your business in Nigeria. It is so hard. So the moment they can assure you that these utilities that you need to start up your business will be provided to you, so long as you have a genuine interest, so long as you're a brilliant mind. And then you can see that once individuals know that this is what they want, this is what they can get at the end of the day, you will see a lot of people acting much more wiser.
True.
You have to be intentional with what you do. So you see people don't just go to school anymore just for the sake of having a BSc or a HND. People go to school because at the end of the day, the government is going to provide something for me to work with. They're going to... Exactly. And that is what everybody wants to do. So we should give them a choice, right? Do you want to work with someone, a startup, who you think you can add much value to? Because in my own, even if they want to put you in a big company, for example, KPMG, just put you in a company that is multinational, you have to understand, what role am I playing in that business? What am I giving in? So it's better for me to start up with something I can do, or work with somebody who I can learn about the industry I want to learn with, as opposed to going somewhere, especially if it's going to be a secondary school or a primary school, and then that's just it.
I really, really understand your argument, and I think I quite agree with it, especially considering the argument made by Samuel about how the NYSC, the National Youth Service Corps, simply involves deployment and not integration. However, if you have a National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme that actually puts you in a place where you are interested in, that develops your personal and professional, repertoire, it is more likely for you to stay there or develop yourself there, because this is home. This is where your career will be made. So I really, really agree with you on the potential benefits of a National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme. And I think I have to mention that, the introduction of a National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme also includes, an encompassing scheme. We do not want to just limit it to people that have gone to universities or polytechnics or colleges of education. We just need to set some sort of criteria for, you've established an interest in this particular area, this particular career path,
and you can develop it.
So let us help you develop this career path, both for yourself and for the country.
And this is what brilliant minds like Gemovia does. They create a platform for people who are smart enough, who know what they want to do. Whether or not you have the funding, just have the brains, have the knowledge, and then we would help you develop it. Yeah. So we're not telling you to be lazy, right? We're telling you that develop yourself, because nobody wants lazy Nigerians.
True.
We're telling you that develop your capacity, your mental status. To what level can you develop it to? And then we would do the rest for you, or would add in what we can add in for you. It's a brilliant scheme.
Well, I agree with all Chinwe has said. But in addition to that, one thing that is pivotal in the labor market and the labor force, especially in Nigeria and in this dispensation, is experience. Now, when you've gone through 4 years, some 5 years, some 7 years of theoretical acquisition of knowledge in the university, there is need to supplement with the practical. Yes. Exactly. Immediately you get out of the university education, you need to know what to do. Now, as a young Nigerian, I will be more concerned after I finish my university education on how to know how things go on the streets, to know how things are done, rather than just going to teach or to go and be marching somewhere. I'm more concerned to know how to go about my professional endeavors, right? And so this is what the National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme provides. They deploy me to an institute or a firm that teaches me. In addition, it aids my learning. It doesn't just make me follow. It doesn't just make me stick to what I've learned in the four walls of a school environment.
Definitely. And I also think it's very important to understand that, listen, there are people that studied law or chemistry or engineering or whatever, but rather want to develop their career stricto sensu in another field.
Yes.
So, for instance, I have guys in my faculty, University of Lagos Faculty of Law, who are studying law with me, but want to develop themselves in baking. So the National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme would allow them, to choose to go to the baking industry and work with organizations and startups in the baking industry. This means that these guys, once they finish the NYES, can develop themselves in the baking industry. Yeah. And even if they go in there, they feel like, okay, you know what, this thing is not my thing. I want to go back to law. They can easily after the NYES, come back to practicing law. Yeah. So it serves even more utility for these guys in making, like Chinwe said, an informed decision. More importantly, we already made submissions on how startups are already failing. So the introduction of an NYES would ensure that, startups get a steady source of labor.
Yes.
They'll be primarily funded by the federal government, which decreases the operating cost of these startups and enables them to float. Because the cost of running the business becomes reduced. Yeah. Again, we must also consider the fact that this sort of scheme would enable or encourage startups to register their businesses with the government, because upon registration there's always a possibility and a pool of resources available for you, not just as regard labor, but as we already mentioned, other perks such as registration, financial support, empowerment and stuff like this. These are very, very important and key things we have to address, to ensure that the federal government of Nigeria, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and every other individual here develop ourselves, not just for the sake of ourselves, but for the sake of our society. So definitely that is, the status quo. The problem with the status quo, this is what we are, this is what we provide, the potential benefits of the National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme. And the only question now is, how do we intend to achieve an integration or a substitution of the National Youth Service Corps with the National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme? Now, basically, we understand that the National Youth Service Corps requires, the post to various states for the purpose of integration. We do not dispute this. We say it is fine. What we actually dispute is putting people in primary school or secondary schools, like Chinwe so vehemently argues against.
It is very disappointing that you put a first-class student or a 2-1 student in a primary school where they will pay the person 5,000 naira to work. It is because the person already has, especially people who are bright, right? They already know what they want to do. So you now make them feel less insignificant to the system, because what it feels on your psychic is that you feel like the state takes you for granted because I put so much effort into learning, and then you put so little effort into ensuring that what I've learned is useful.
Is used. True. So basically, we feel that, rather than just posting corp members all across the country and into any industry the government deems fit, they should just substitute it for allowing these guys to choose a particular industry they want to work with. Put these guys in an industry that aligns with their interests. Put them, most especially, and this is like the basic bone of our submissions, most especially put them in startups that align with their interests. So therefore, if you are an insurance graduate with a first class or a 2-1 or whatever you graduated with, put them in the startup in the insurance industry. This is going to ensure that, when these guys are done with their 1-year compulsory service, it will be very easy for them, having gained the necessary experience, to start their own startup or their own organization in the insurance industry.
Yes, because let's not dispute the nature of startup, because a lot of people would think that startups are not viable companies. But in my personal opinion, I think the best place for anybody to learn is in a startup. Because you get so much experience, you get so much knowledge, because you're going to be so involved in a lot of things as opposed to working with a big company that already has structure laid down. When you work in a startup, you know the nitty-gritty, you know how tax payment works, you know how the system is going, you know how you need to network, you know what you need to do. It's very important because no big company will take you seriously if you don't know the industry.
For me, after my study in law, I would like to even be deployed to a startup law firm. Because I get to do everything. I go to court. I know all the processes. I know how to file my motions. I know how to go through every process that I need to. And they are going to tutor me in that way. And so when I'm done with my learning process under them, that at that point in time, money won't be my own concern.
Definitely.
Gaining experience and knowing what to do will be my own concern.
That's the basic idea of the National Youth
Entrepreneurial Scheme.
I'm really okay, definitely, regardless. We need to also understand that we are proposing that the National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme should include people that do not graduate from universities, polytechnics, college of education. Now, how this is to be done is to be determined by the relevant ministries and agencies. We don't like to impose on the ministries, this is exactly what you should do. But we are telling you to find a way to involve and include people that are not graduated from these institutions, in this National Youth Entrepreneurship
Because those
Scheme.
are the people who really need it.
Definitely, because these guys would otherwise remain jobless, and idle hand is almost always the devil's workshop. You understand? And then finally, we tell you that the introduction of this scheme is going to aid not just the society, not just the corp members, but also the startups themselves. Because these guys, like we mentioned earlier, the cost of running their startup will be reduced. Fresh perspectives and theoretical analysis that will be brought by these graduates or guys from outside the four walls of a school that have gained some practical hands-on experience will be added bonuses and benefits to these startup organizations. Therefore, there is literally nothing to lose. On the other hand, we've established, according to Dumadi Samuel, that the National Youth Service Corps is not achieving the utility it is supposed to be achieving. Therefore, we are simply replacing what is not functioning.
It's something functional.
Well, in my own opinion, I think necessarily the scheme is not achieving what it wants to achieve, but it still has some benefits. So, for example, I get to meet people who I otherwise would not have met. I don't need to travel out of my state because I might not want to be posted in Jos or in another state, but I just want to meet people. So the fact that the camp allows me to meet people while in camp, allows me to, go for CDS, other things like that, to just express myself. I think that part of the scheme is brilliant, because whether or not you like it, as a business person, as someone who wants to go into any industry, networking is key.
It's very, very important.
So the scheme allows for you to network, and by the time you meet with different people, you understand that this is how a certain type of people think in this kind of way. So if I'm going to design a product or service for this kind of people, I know that this is what they would like, this is what they would not like. So irrespective of the fact that the scheme isn't achieving what we think it should achieve, there's still some benefits to it.
Definitely, and that's why we are trying to integrate the benefits of the National Youth Service Corps with the benefit of the National Entrepreneurship Scheme, by ensuring that these guys fuse together to form a relationship that would benefit everybody. Because in the end, the matter of integration is still very important.
Very important.
And the National Entrepreneurship Scheme would actually involve real tangible integration rather than deployment. The matter of networking is also very important, and the entrepreneurship scheme would also involve networking. Therefore, all the potential benefits or all the tangible benefits of the NYSC would still be present in the National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme.
I think a conglomeration of the National Youth Service Corps and the National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme is very important. But how to go about it, I feel the most important thing here is scrutiny. Now, we have thousands and millions of youth that have just graduated from several institutions, and they have different interests. Now, the most important thing is to provide a pool of opportunities for them, forgetting whatsoever you have studied in university, and that what you desire may be in tandem with that, but it should not be the most important. Like, for instance, you said a lot of people that are studying law in baking. Now, you just provide the opportunities for them and scrutinize them so much that they tally with their interests, and that would be the most important thing. I think we should forget the fact of deployment and the frivolous relatively frivolous, moving from region to region, from Lagos to Borno or whatsoever. I think that's not really important. If truly we are interested in building the economy, I think we should put in more effort rather than partying.
Yes, because when I go to, let's say, the deep east or the deep west, and then I go there as someone who does not have enough financial support, and I meet someone there who is living below $1 a day, and we're trying to make connection. Like, you don't expect anybody to tolerate it, because everybody is hungry, everybody is angry.
Hungry man is an angry man.
Then you tell me I should go there and integrate. I can't integrate because I'm hungry.
It won't even work.
And I don't know what I'm doing there. So it's just...
So basically, proper integration also includes some sort of commercial transactions, some sort of utility, and we're proposing a scheme that provides this utility. So basically, this is our argument on why we need to, exchange the currently existing National Youth Service Corps with a National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme that would involve, the benefit of the NYSC and include, the potential benefits of an entrepreneurship scheme that would, teach us the practical hands-on experience that are needed for the theoretical learnings we've done on entrepreneurship in our universities, our tertiary institutions, and every other thing, and also involving, people that did not also go to universities, polytechnics, and
college of education.
Because at the end, we all just want to find a way and a means of livelihood that works within our standards of living.
And we also want Nigerians who are patriotic. We also want Nigerians who love the country.
Yeah.
Not Nigerians who will blame the country for their failure.
And we as Nigerians want to empower ourselves in every other way.
So on that note, we round up that we need to empower ourselves, via every means available, and correct the progression and regression of our employment statistics and economic development. For this reason, the International Center for Tax Research and Development are proposing that we replace the NYSC with a National Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme. Thank you for joining us once again. My name is Dusumu Agbola Mubarak. Here with me is
Neji Chinwe.
Over there is
Dumade Samuel Ayomide.
These are our submissions on this particular topic, and we hope you enjoyed our recommendations. Please feel free to make your own comments and and give us your thoughts about this particular issue, and please join us for the next sessions. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
No love is all we